Hidden Gems, Episode 29, Think Fast. Welcome to Hidden Gems, a board game podcast where we review unusual, forgotten, and underappreciated board games. We're your hosts. My name is Chris.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Cameron. Thanks for listening to our show. Well, we've had some fun recently.
Yes, we have.
Last weekend we got to... Was it just last weekend?
Two weekends.
It was last weekend, right?
Was it last weekend?
Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh. See, the old age is already
That's
setting
true.
in.
And also says something about how much fun we had.
That's true.
Well, last weekend we got to get away
Cutting loose.
from Raleigh, Durham area.
And go all the way to Burlington.
Rent a place
An hour away.
about an
Not
hour
even.
away from home to celebrate Chris's 40th birthday.
That's right.
by
4-0.
playing board games with 11 dudes for 4 days.
That's straight.
It was awesome.
And it was glorious.
And ping pong.
That's
and ping
true.
pong.
This
Plenty
place
of
was
ping pong.
awesome.
It was.
Talia went all out to find the coolest place for us to hang out. We had these like garage doors on one half of the house that
Yep.
we could open. The weather was good for about 20 minutes or so.
Looking out over a pond.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Talia has this uncanny
Fireplace.
ability of finding these obscure, awesome Airbnb
It was
finds.
surrounded by a bamboo forest.
Exactly. Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
A bamboo
Yeah.
forest around the house. It was crazy.
Oh, it was so much fun.
It
though.
was. We had a lot of fun. We'll talk about the games in a second, but the ping pong was fun. And I will say, I'm not going to brag too much, but our friend circle is pretty darn good at ping pong. We had some
We had
epic
some
matches.
great games, yeah.
We did. I think I was winning a lot early on because I had a special ping pong paddle that I brought
Jason's
with me.
like, I brought my own paddle.
In its own
We're
sleeve.
playing with the ones that have like one side that's real flappy.
And then we got but then we got another good paddle, and I got beat. I didn't win again. For the rest of the
Equalizer.
weekend, so.
We would sit there and have practice runs where we're seeing who could put more spin on the ball and see if you could return each other's spins.
Yep.
Oh, it was fun.
It was a good time. I have to tell you, I think I've told you all, but just to say it on air publicly, I felt very appreciated and very loved. And
Got some presents?
I did. I got some presents. Yeah. So, Bill, we got to talk about Bill here for a minute.
Oh, man.
I got to give Bill a little bit of a shout out because he really just went above and beyond here.
He did.
Bill got me a robe.
I got you a robe.
Well, that was you?
Yeah.
Oh, that was you. Crap. Bill got me the pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you coordinate this with him?
No, but we
Okay.
had a theme.
Okay, you had the theme. So I got the old man robe, which is incredibly comfortable, and I still
yeah.
will. I think I said in the Christmas episode I asked for a blanket and
Duke
socks.
blue.
And Duke blue, perfect colors. So I've got the socks,
Gross.
I've got the blanket, I've got the robe, and then Bill's wife hand sewed me a pillow to sit in my lap as I play games that has hexes on it
That's right.
in a blue gray color. Just fantastic. Loved it. Also, one thing I'll say about Bill, so the party was 80s themed, and Bill went all out on the decorating.
Oh, man.
From what I
He
understand.
had the comic book, like original 80s comic books.
He did. He had Mad magazines.
Video games.
Original NES.
That's
The
right.
NES was out. We played Contra several times.
Yeah, all the
over
way
weekend.
through.
All the way through. Marble Madness. And then I think probably one of the highlights of the weekend for me, it was
Giant
just
poster.
the giant poster's awesome, and I'm hanging it in my game room. It's got like Madonna and Michael Jackson on
Yeah.
it, cassette tapes, and all kinds of cool stuff. But it was the night before we left. We were playing King Chocolate and Isle of Cats, and Bill had a laser light show going on the ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
And
Because
we were
of course he
listen-
does.
Yeah, and we were listening to
playlist.
disco music.
That's right.
And I looked up a couple of times, and I saw Bill holding his phone. And he was playing his music from it. He was just spinning, listening to this disco music. Bill was loose as a goose, man. He was having a good time. I was just cracking up watching Bill dance to this disco music.
Yeah. It was great. Bill's never been to one of these types of getaways
Yep.
before. It was great to have him there. But we also got to see some of our old timers from our
Yep.
board game getaway weekends. It's really good to see some of those folks I hadn't
Yeah.
seen in a long time. A couple of years at least since the pandemic.
Exactly.
We haven't done our getaway.
Yep. I was happy that my birthday could stand in for the getaway, and so hopefully now we'll be able to continue doing this thing
Yeah.
from year to year.
Played Terraforming Mars. I think there were at least 4 to 5 games of Terraforming Mars played.
So much Terraforming Mars.
Everyone had like Terraforming Mars hangover.
I think we had these delusions of grandeur. Jason and I were talking. We're like, okay, this is where we're going to get caught up on the podcast. We're actually going to bank some time. We're
Yeah.
going to play these games. And
Hey, I had nothing to
40
do with
minutes,
that.
everyone's
I
like,
didn't.
"Should
I
we
didn't play
play
Terraforming
Terraforming
Mars
Mars?"
a single time that weekend. All y'all fools over there playing.
I only played once.
9 hours of Terraforming
I
Mars.
played 3 times.
Yeah.
So whose fault is it?
It's mine. It was fun, though.
But we did play Isle of Cats. We got some of the hotness out on the table.
We did. We actually did make a good dent in the episodes. We got a lot of plays in on our Spiel episode, which I'm so excited about. We've hinted at a little bit. So, yeah. All in all, a successful, fun, super enjoyable weekend. I thank you all.
Absolutely. Well, we're grateful for you.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. All right, so we have another kind of cool announcement coming up.
Yep.
So Hidden Gems is proud to announce, I think, that we're planning to go to Origins.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty excited about that.
So excited.
Yeah. So we went, or at least Chris, you and I went 2019?
Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago.
I think
year before
when,
the pandemic.
Yeah, I think is when it was. Had a blast, and so we're looking forward to going back. And hopefully we will try as we get closer. We haven't signed up for all the stuff yet, but...
Catalog is not out yet.
Oh, okay.
The events catalog, yeah.
But when it is, we will try to publicize some of the places and events that we might be.
Yep.
If you guys want to try to meet up with us, we would love that. So yeah, super excited about that.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with how Origins work, they do release a catalog of events before the show starts, and you can actually sign up for slots of time if you want to make a sword or do some leather work or play a game of D&D.
Cannot wait to do some leather work. It's not a joke. Like, I legitimately am excited about some of these things that I've never gotten to do.
Yeah.
And I want to go try them out.
This catalog is like a phone book. There are so many things you can do. It's crazy.
I remember you guys went a couple years ago, and you're like, Cameron, you wouldn't believe the stuff that you would see at this place, and I was so jealous that I didn't go. So I'm really looking forward to it.
You can have a sword fight.
It's on my birthday week. My birthday present to myself, I guess.
Yes.
Casey was like, yeah, you can do that for your birthday.
Sweet. Yeah, it's a good time. You see all kinds of strange bizarreness as you would expect to see at cons, but the events are fun. I remember last time we went, probably the funnest thing that we did, Jason and I and Ethan, one of our friends that went with us, played a game called D&D Monster Mash.
Sounds so fun.
Where they put together this gigantic board, and it's like a battle arena, last man standing death match, basically.
The 4th edition rules, right?
4th edition rules.
Yeah.
You get a random character. You could be a creature like a dragon. You could be a wizard. You could be a barbarian. You could be a goblin. And basically, you're just trying to survive. And it's everybody attacking everybody else. It was so cool. If they're doing that again, that is going to happen.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was super fun.
That's so fun.
Yeah, Jason got in like the top 3, I think.
Yeah,
like
I'd never done anything like that before, but it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, our hope is definitely at some point that we can like find a place where there's like tables or something and just be able to tell you guys that, hey, we're going to be, over here in this area. Come meet us, come play games with us or whatever. I don't know how that works. Hopefully we could play games with some of the folks that listen to the show. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, that's the plan. We're not going to have a booth or anything.
It's not an official thing.
No, definitely not. But as we get closer to the day, we'll give you a general area of where in the gaming hall we're going to be hanging out. And we'll be wearing our merch, of course.
Yeah.
And if you can find us, come play a game. Teach us a game.
Sure.
I actually thought about this. I thought it would be cool to do an episode where we review 3 games that listeners taught to us at Origins.
Oh, that would be really fun.
If we can have enough people to do that.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
So come to Origins. Teach us a game.
Can pre-record them teaching the rules, then we don't have to do it.
Bill's 360 camera.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, what else have you guys been up to lately?
Yeah, so we've got a fun little banter topic here that I thought would be appropriate. I've actually been saving it for this episode because it fits so perfectly. So if you didn't pick up from the title of Think Fast, we're going to be talking about real-time games tonight, or games that have simultaneous speed aspect to them. You have to think quickly. And there's a game that I've been wanting to try on the Switch. You can also get it on Steam. It's a little indie-style game called Minute. And I'll spell that, because it's not how you would expect it to be spelled. It's M-I-N-I-T, Minute. And as you would expect, being an indie title, it has an indie look to it. It's in a black and white art style, pixelated, top-down 2D, kind of like a old school NES Zelda look to it.
Looks like Game Boy.
Or like Pokemon,
like Game Boy.
Pokemon Angle.
Or Pokemon Angle,
yeah.
Exactly. And the general idea of the game is you have to win the game in a minute, which sounds impossible. You're like, how do I even do that? Because once you start the game, you start in your little house, and the clock starts. And once the clock hits 0, you die. And you have to restart back in your house. But what's interesting about the game is any items that you acquire when you die, you keep. And as you discover more items, you can unlock more areas of the world, and you just slowly start to uncover and find more and more stuff. So we've all 3 played it.
Yep.
What did you guys think about Minute?
I feel like we have to give our opinions in under a minute.
Okay. Go.
No, I've played most of the old school top-down Zelda games and really enjoy those. So this felt very familiar.
Yep.
Because it's as short as it is, I think I finished the game feeling like, man, I wish there was more to it.
Sure.
But
it takes you longer than 1 minute to play the whole game.
Yeah, of course.
To end,
right.
Yeah.
How long did it take you roundabout?
Probably 2 to 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
maybe.
That's faster. Man, I finished it in around 4.
Okay.
Something like that.
It has a timer on it. I probably could have looked it up, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, I found myself wishing there was more to it.
Sure.
But I can appreciate it for what it is and what it's not, right? It's not trying to be a full-fledged Zelda game, right? Yep. I thought the gimmick of the minute timer was interesting. I don't know how much it really factored into the overall gameplay.
At times it does, I think.
At times. There's one section where you need the fast boots to be able to run fast enough to get to certain things.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry.
Good one.
I just did that part.
But I thought it was clever
Yes.
for what they managed to pull off in like super bare bones graphics type of way and in such a short package. It felt like a Zelda game in a very small
It
package.
did, yeah.
I would definitely say that the minute countdown timer, it does add something to the game. And I think what it is a memory element. You
Yeah.
have to memorize the map and know what
Yep.
routes you can take. So that's kind of how I started to think of it, as like each time you die, you're starting a new day.
Right. It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah. So it's like every time you start a new day, you have to go, okay, I need to get from here to here. Here's the route that I have to take to be able to nail it. Because sometimes you get to the place where you need to go in like just the right amount of time,
Yes.
like right in under the ticker, you know?
Yeah.
So I thought that it was an interesting element of the game. The minute factor kind of contributed.
I agree with that.
But
Yeah.
I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, I thought it was clever. It didn't feel frustrating when you die because every time you make a run, usually you learn something
Or you gain
get
something,
something.
yeah.
Exactly. And every time you pick up something, you're like, oh, now I can go to this place.
Yeah.
But then you're like, shoot, where was that again? So you're
Right.
trying to like remember.
Or you
where
see something, you're like, oh, I've never tried chopping that before. I'll go there next time and try to chop it.
Right. Yeah, it's got this cool little exploration, trial and error, slowly uncovering more and more. That personally, I just really enjoyed. I thought it was fun. I totally agree with Jason. It's short for sure, but I bought it for like $6 or $7.
I was gonna say, I think
think
it was like $7.
I mean, to me, this is the equivalent of going to the movies, right? Which is even cheaper, right?
Sure.
It's a way you can spend an evening. It would be something fun to do with like your wife or your husband or a boyfriend or a girlfriend. If you like escape room games or something like that, just fun little puzzle. It's challenging at times, but not too hard. It's solvable. It's not frustrating, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It's not like the latter levels of Baba Is You.
Exactly, which I've almost given up on at this point. I'm not saying it's not a great game, and I'll probably come back to it, but holy crap is Baba Is You hard.
So hard.
Baba is hard.
Yeah,
Baba is frustrating.
I've made it to like 120 something, and I'm
I don't even know
I'm
what
about
my
done.
number is.
Gosh, it's hard.
I
It's
wouldn't announce it
soul-crushing.
on the show, though.
That's right. Baba is annoying.
All right. So that's Minute.
Yeah.
Check it out on the Switch. I think it's on phone apps as well.
Apps,
Maybe
Steam, yeah, you
whatever.
can find it really easy.
Check
But
it
yeah,
out.
it's cool.
It's fun. I would
liked
recommend it.
I
For the
would too.
price point, I think I would recommend it.
If you're into escape games or puzzly games, definitely worth playing.
Yeah.
No brainer, I think.
Well, speaking of puzzly games that you might only have a minute to enjoy, we're talking about real-time games, speed games this episode. Does our cocktail have anything to do with that?
It does indeed. The cocktail tonight is called The Flash. Went out on a limb on this one. I've never had this before, but I was trying to come up with something thematic, and this is the best one I could get. The reason why it's a little bit of a risk, and Jason mentioned this when I made it, is it's got cucumber in it.
Yeah, not generally a fan of cucumber, but I will say, I think this is probably one of my favorite drinks that you've made. It's good.
It's really good.
Pleasantly surprised by this one. So it's not super straightforward. It's not super complicated either, but it's a little bit more involved. If you're not familiar with cocktail making, you have to do something called muddling with this drink, which there's a tool you can get for this. Basically what you do is you take 2 slices of peeled kiwi fruit and 1 slice of peeled cucumber, and you pour an ounce of lemon juice in your shaker, and you smash it together. You're trying to get all those juices out. You're just smashing it all together. Then you add 1.5 ounces of gin, 3/4 ounce simple syrup, ice, and then you shake the heck out of it for a good bit, and then you fine strain it. So this is another tool for this. There's a fine strainer because you're going to have big bits of fruit coming out of your shaker. You strain it into a glass and serve.
Delicious.
This is a good one.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I need the recipe for this one.
Yeah, it's good. Let's go ahead and segue into our last part of the banter before we get into the reviews. As Cameron has mentioned and I mentioned, we're talking about real-time games, fast-thinking games. I'll go ahead and say right off the bat, it cannot be said on Hidden Gems that we're not committed to covering all different kinds of genres within the board game hobby, because as a general rule, I hate these kind of games.
Same.
I'm a very slow, methodical thinker. I'm prone to AP at times, I will confess. I think we all are to a certain
If there's no
degree.
strategy, you get frustrated.
I like
it's all tactics.
If I have time to think, I do pretty well. But I'm telling you, my family, they're not big gamers. They play cards, as I mentioned on the show. But my family loves Dutch Blitz. Mm-hmm. And they kill me at Dutch Blitz. I mean, I just can't do it. I try. I really do. They beat me every time. I've never won Dutch Blitz, ever. They crush me. So I was a little bit hesitant, but I was like, we got to do this. We got to cover these games. And so I'm excited to talk about these because I think they're interesting. But that's all I'll say. What do you guys experience with real-time games? Feelings on them? History?
Yeah, I will say, I was trying to recall, I don't know that I have a ton of experience with real-time games outside of, you mentioned Dutch Blitz. I've played that, I think, once or twice and remember not enjoying it just because it's chaotic and I'm just not quick. Or maybe Egyptian Rat Screw.
Oh, yeah.
Played maybe a couple times, slapping the pile of cards. Outside of that, I can't recall too many real-time games that I've played.
I think for me, when I think about real-time games, it makes me think about sports. And I would say my experience is mostly negative. So
Cameron loves sports, everybody.
I'm great at sports ball.
All round thing.
Yeah.
Is ping pong a real-time game?
He is good at ping pong.
I would say my best sport is ping pong.
For sure it
is that a real-time game?
Quick thinking.
Quick thinking, fast reaction. I've played so much ping pong at this point. I'm like just muscle memory.
Yep.
You beat me a few times this weekend, so.
Not the times after you memorized all my serves and the sequence in which I introduced them to you.
I only have one serve, turbo speed.
But yeah, maybe Dutch Blitz, and I think there's a card game that's literally just called Speed, but it's probably been 20 years since I've played it.
Right. Well, yeah, we're excited about talking about these. Again, this is different, and that's what we're trying to do here on the podcast is looking at the board game hobby as a whole. We're trying to cover everything, even if it's something that we don't personally like. Social deduction, going to happen at some point, Jason.
Oh, God.
Negotiation. It's going to come at some point, much to my chagrin, because I'm going to get killed in all those games because I always get sabotaged.
Eventually, you guys are going to force me to play Scythe.
That's right. Oh, and one more note I want to say. For all of you who actually listen to the credits, you're like, I thought you were talking about Vassal games. We did say that last episode, but we got so sidetracked on the birthday getaway. And we played Terraforming Mars too many times. We're having to push that one back. So in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing Tom Vassal's most notorious reviews.
I think we also underestimated drastically the length of one of those 3 games.
Yes, we did. One of those games is real long. Yeah, but it's coming.
Sweet. Well, let's get into the games.
Let's do it.
Goblins falling from the sky. Can you teach us how to
Traditional goblin falling song. In a far-off land, goblins are falling from a great height. It doesn't matter much why. There are lots of goblins, so there are bound to be some heading toward the ground. Along the way, they've decided to see who can hit the ground last. It's not much of a goal, but it's all they could think of on the way down.
Perfect.
Oh, wonderful. Falling, published in 1998 by Cheap Ass Games, Paizo Publishing, and Titanic Games. And I'll place a little bit of emphasis on the Titanic Games version because this is the version that I have, and this is actually the Goblin artwork version, which I strongly recommend for this game. And we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in a minute, but that's the one I would get if you're able to. All right, you guys ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
At the time of this recording, its BGG ranking is
What?
838.
Wow. Is that the highest one yet?
Oh, for sure, by far. I
Oh,
think
wow.
Smiley Face was like 12,000.
Really?
Yes.
Smiley face?
Yes.
Oh, man.
19,838.
Why does anybody know about smiley face?
I know, right? Okay.
Well, we got another high one coming up.
We
in
do.
the same episode.
It's like the episode of games that are way far down on the BGG
You're
list.
saying this game is high?
And coming down. Designer of this game is James Ernest. We've talked about this guy on here before, and the reason for that is we learned about this game in Mike Selinker's 100 Games You Absolutely Must Play, where we talked about that. And Mike Selinker and James Ernest are really good friends. They've actually co-designed a lot of games together. 12 Days, the card game, which we reviewed on here for Christmas. Lords of Vegas. And then James Ernest also has some notable designs of his own, specifically Kill Dr. Lucky, which I hate, by the way. But he is known for that game. And Unexploded Cow,
Oh.
which might be featured on the podcast
Yeah.
at
Is
some
that like a
point.
contra to like exploding kittens?
No, it was way before that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Weird game. All right. Brief rule summary for Falling. In the game Falling, you and the other goblin players are hurtling towards the ground, with your goal being to be the last player to hit the ground. The game very simply consists of a deck of 55 cards, with the bottom 7 cards of the deck being made up solely of ground cards. Each game, one player will be the dealer, so that player is a neutral player. They're not playing, they're just facilitating the game. And the other players will be the fallers. Over the course of the entire game, the dealer will be very methodically dealing one card at a time face up in front of each player. It's important to note that the game never stops once started. Again, the dealer is dealing in front of each player one card, and everybody is acting all at one time, taking their actions. So receiving cards one at a time until the deck is exhausted and all but one player has hit the ground. So you're probably asking yourself, okay, where's the game here? Well, on your turn, at any time, you can pick up the top card of your deck and then play this card either in front of yourself or in front of one of your opponents. It's important to note that you can only hold one card at a time, so if you have an unplayed card in your hand, you cannot draw a new one from your deck until you've played that card. And all the while, the dealer is continuing to methodically deal out cards one by one. Now, there are 2 types of cards in the deck that the players can play: riders and action cards. The 4 rider cards are Hit, Split, Skip, and Extra. Once a rider card is resolved by the dealer, it is pulled away and placed into a community discard pile. So basically, that card will only affect that player once, and then it's discarded away. If a hit card is played in front of you, this means that the dealer will play 2 cards into your pile instead of the normal 1. A split card will cause the dealer to start a new second pile of cards, or third, or even fourth maybe, depending on the number of splits you do, in front of that player. If a skip rider card is placed in front of a player, the dealer will skip over them for that turn and not deal them a card. Extra, quote-unquote, rider cards are the only cards that can be added to rider cards already in front of another player, and they basically just double the effect of that rider card already in play. So, for example, if you play extra on a skip, that player will be skipped twice instead of the normal once. Now let's talk quickly about the action cards. There are 3 different types of action cards: grab, push, and stop. A grab card allows a player to grab a rider from in front of another player and place it in front of themselves. The push card lets a player move a rider from in front of themselves into position in front of another player, as long as that player doesn't have another rider already in front of them. And finally, the stop card allows you to discard an unwanted rider card from in front of you, or if played at the end, will allow you to cancel the effect of one dealt ground card. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. What's the point of all this if we're all just going to hit the ground when the ground cards start coming out on the bottom of the deck? So it's important to understand in this game that all you're really doing over the course of this 2-minute long game is trying to prime or prepare your deck in such a way that you are prepared for the coming ground cards so that you can survive just a little bit longer than your opponents. And that's all I'll say about it for now. I felt the need to maybe do a little bit
And
of
that's
clarification.
specifically how you play Falling.
Yeah, and I felt compelled to be specific because this is a weird one, and this game cannot seem like a game when you read the rules the first times, and even when you're taught it, you're like, this isn't a game.
Even when you play it for the first 3 or 4 times.
Yes, but it is a game. It's a pretty good one. I'm going to just spoil it right at the front. But yeah, that's all we'll say about it for now. So as I mentioned, in Falling, the game consists of a deck of cards. 55 cards, I think I said, and it literally plays in 2 minutes. So, small footprint, short game. Did you feel like in that deck of 55 cards, this game captured the feel of you falling?
I think so. The image that it puts in my mind is imagining some of the aerial acrobatics that parachuters do, where they're climbing on each other and swinging each other around and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You sort of get that feel, or even like cartoons where like someone's climbing up a ladder and they climb up over somebody, like, put their foot on the guy's head and like that sort of thing. Like that's the push card and grab cards, like grabbing onto them, pulling them down and that sort of thing.
Or grabbing onto a bird or something.
Yeah,
Trying to slow
exactly.
your descent towards the ground.
The art on the cards is crucial.
Yes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it helps a lot.
Yeah, I think I would echo that. It's so short, and you're just frantically like, okay, I got this card, I got to pass it off. All right, what do I do with this card? And so it definitely captures that feeling of you're scrabbling to just get 1 or 2 inches above the person next to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it captured that pretty well.
Yeah, me too. I have to say, I found this game to be remarkably thematic. It's incredibly clever in that way.
Yeah.
You know, as the dealer is dealing out those cards one at a time to everybody, once you understand how the game works, it definitely elicits a sensation of falling. You feel it. And the reason I say that is when the game starts out, the interaction between players is occurring, but it's not frantic. People are doing things. But as you work through the deck and those ground cards get closer and closer, the gameplay really begins to speed up and players begin to move more quickly. Because the inevitability of the ground is coming, right? It's approaching, and so you're trying to quickly save yourself, basically. And to me, I thought it was just incredibly clever, the way that it did that.
It creates the social experience where you start to feel that sense of urgency yourself, even if you know, oh, there's still a few more cards before the ground cards start coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're constantly trying to figure out how to mitigate the stuff that's happening to you.
Yes.
Like, there's the construction of the deck. That's one thing, of trying to organize your deck so that you have access to the cards you need at the end. But there's also people doing stuff to you the whole time. They're like stealing your cards or throwing extra stuff in front of you that you don't need that's messing up your deck or messing up your plan for your deck. Yeah, that franticness to it is unique for sure, I think
so. Yeah, and I know as we're describing it here, you might be listening to this and thinking, man, this sounds kind of chaotic and maybe a little random and kind of crazy.
And it is.
Well, I agree with 2 of those things. I think it's crazy game. This game is a zany game. I don't know if I would describe it as random. I think there are random elements depending on what kind of cards you get. But the more I played this one, and I played this game probably 20 times during the birthday retreat that we had, there are some really clever things going on here, I think, especially in regards to how you do the cards. So I'll give a few examples. One that we really picked up on that I thought was interesting was the split card. So you can play a split card, and now you can have 2 decks. And if you play another split, now you have 3 decks, which in a lot of ways can be a liability because that's 3 decks you have to survive ground cards for.
Because you're going to get a card on each pile that you have when you have a split.
So you may be asking yourself, well, why in the heck would I willingly put 3 decks in front of myself and have to maybe contend with 3 ground cards? But if you play a skip rider in front of yourself, then it skips over all of your decks. So you can protect your stacks that way. But still you may be saying, well, what's the benefit? The benefit is, if you have 3 decks in front of you, you have more options to choose from of that card you're going to pick up and play to give yourself flexibility in the game. Right. And I found in the games I did poorly in was when I was really short-stacked and didn't have a lot of options.
Right.
Which again, I've emphasizes the importance of that hit card. You may think, well, I don't want to get hit, but early, sometimes it's good to get hit to have more cards in your deck so you have more options, right? To me, I just felt like there was a lot of fun and strategy in crafting my deck in front of me to prepare myself for that end. Because that's really what you want to do is once the ground starts coming out, play a skip, then an extra skip, then a stop card, then push a bad card in front of a person, right? To where you just continue to avoid that ground round after round after round and be the last man standing, which I thought was just incredibly clever.
Yes and no.
All right, bring it on. I'm ready to defend this one.
Yeah, oh, you can defend it for sure. You say it's not random. I would agree with that because you're constantly trying to reorganize what's happening to you.
Yes.
Right. I feel like, though, once everybody basically has a couple of those save myself cards at the bottom of their deck, or I guess it's at the top of your deck, right? Then it really comes down to who gets screwed first, right? By somebody throwing another card in front of them that messes them up,
Well, I mean, you can throw a card in front of yourself first, right? To protect yourself.
Sure, but I don't know. It felt that split second where it transitions from, all right, I'm constructing my deck to now it's just chaos and I'm trying to defend myself. So much stuff happens in that split second. It's hard to describe, but there's something about that felt less than pure strategy, right? Like, yes,
control.
You can prepare yourself.
Strongly disagree.
And that's fine, right? I'm not saying that I think that it's a bad game or that you can't prepare yourself. Yeah. I'm saying that for me, it still felt like there was just this chaotic moment at the end where it's like, okay, well, yep, that just happened.
So let me hold on a second before I want you to talk, Cameron. I just have to ask this question. So let me ask you, Jason, and you too, Cameron. If you had played Falling 10 times, 10 or 15 times, which is what? 15 to 20 minutes of actual gameplay, and you played it against somebody who had never played it before. Do you think the person who had played it more would have a huge advantage in the game and be more likely to win?
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Yes, because it takes 3 or 4 plays to even understand what you're trying to do in this game.
Okay.
Once you get to those 3 or 4 plays, if I've played it 10 times and you've played it 20 times, I think at that point it's kind of a crapshoot.
I don't know.
I don't think I agree with that either.
Not an entire crapshoot. There is the possibility that another player can just have the finesse to get the hit card in front of you and you don't have a push or anything to deal with it. And so you're sitting there with a cancel card in your hand and 2 other piles that have skip cards on the top and you can't do anything about the hit card that's in front of you and you're just going to get hit and you're going to lose, right? I've been in that situation God knows how many times.
Yeah.
Right, that can happen. I do think, though, that what's happening in this game, especially through repeated plays, it's a whole different set of skills that you have to learn, right? You have to learn to watch the deck in the dealer's hand to measure the pace of the game. You have to keep an eye out for who's got an open spot so that you can slam something down in front of them and try to keep, if you even can, I never got to this point where if I put something down in front of me, the likelihood that someone's going to grab it. And if someone does, to very quickly be able to put something else down there and to feel out when you should try to split yourself. Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I even watched someone split themselves, manage the piles that were getting stacked up on, go back to one pile at the end of the game.
Yes.
It's just a different set of skills. And I think that's real-time games kind of have that.
Yeah.
That element of it's less I can make good decisions from a strategic standpoint to I have this set of observation and dexterity skills.
Yeah. I think the value of the split cannot be overstated. And I understand what you're saying, Jason, about somebody throwing that screw you card in front of you and sinking you. But if I've got 3 piles I'm working from and I have a push card queued up and ready, I'm just going to play the push card. I'm going to push that card back in front of you, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's not on top, but I know it's in one of these decks. Maybe I work my way down to it and then push it over in front of you, right? That's very viable in this game.
I never got to that level. I realized after, 18 plays that I needed to, in those weird moments where I got something in front of me and I can't deal with it, except for that I know that there's a card 3 or 4 layers down.
Yep.
And we had this thing of like, why would you ever put a skip card in front of one of your opponents? It's like, that's why.
Because I have to get to another card.
Because you just have to get it off of the top of your deck so you can get to the cards underneath it.
Yep, agree. All right. Any other things y'all didn't like about the game?
I don't know that it's necessarily a flaw of the game, but I think you have to be prepared to fumble your way through this game a lot until everybody sort of understands how to do it well. Because like you mentioned, the people putting action cards down in front of other people, everyone has to know their role in this game and know what they need to do with the cards that they're playing. Because if they don't, then it does become chaos. Because the person dealing the cards is getting confused as to what needs to happen. Other people are getting confused and not knowing what's happening because people aren't placing cards in the right spot. And it takes a little while, first of all, just understand what you're trying to do, but then you're also trying to understand how to play the game physically in a way that doesn't mess other people up.
Yeah.
And it took us a little while to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the game, I'll say, it can degrade a little bit if there's so much going on and so many hands slapping around and stuff like that, that the dealer has to basically pause and break up that steady rhythm of the game to go, okay, you put that down there, so I have to give you this card and you have to take that back because you weren't allowed to play that over there. Like, if the players don't know how to play in a tidy fashion, I guess it can maybe get downgraded a little bit.
I agree. This was my main con. I think there are definitely growing pains here, and I actually have 4 things written down because I dealt a lot in this game, and I think you guys have hinted on them, but just to reiterate them if anybody wants to try this, because I think they're so important, and you're totally right. For your first few games, deal slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly. Until people figure out what they're
uncomfortably
doing.
slowly.
Yes. The dealer will handle the riders. The players resolve the action cards. That's a big one. Just getting people to understand, if I play an action card, I throw it in the discard. The dealer takes care of riders. It takes a few games, but again, they're 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. And then the last one is, and this was the one that people had the hardest time with, not interfering with a player who's actually being directly interacted with by the dealer. So if the dealer is dealing a person a card, you can't mess with their stuff in front of them. People just instinctively gravitate towards that person, right? Because they have the attention of the dealer, right? You feel like you want to mess with them.
Running the yellow light.
Exactly. Exactly. You just have to resist that urge. But I will tell you, literally, I played this at least 20 times. Once you can get through those growing pains, and we got a pretty core group of guys on our retreat that kind of got it, it works smooth.
Yeah.
It was super smooth, no problems. And in my opinion, the payoff is worth it. But you have to get there. You have to work through growing pains, for sure. Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right. Let's do final thoughts.
Yeah. Why don't you start us off, Jason?
Yeah. So I think it shouldn't be a surprise based on some of the cons that I brought up. I fully agree with you guys. This game was super unique. Mm-hmm. The theme is unique. The concept is unique. The style of play is unique. And I can respect that. I think that for me personally, if I think about this game, if it was here right now and somebody was like, let's play Falling, would I be excited about that or would I be less than excited about that? And I think for me, I would be less than excited about that. So I settled on a 3 for this game. Whatever, Chris. But at the same time, it's a 90-second to 2-minute game.
Exactly, yeah.
So I feel like you owe it to yourself to try it. And you have to be willing, if you're going to try it, you have to be willing to play it at least 4 or 5 times.
For sure.
At least. And I did. I played it probably 10 times. I don't think I played it as much as you did, Chris. But I played it a good enough number of times. And I won. So just so that's out there. It's not because I lost every time. I won at least once. But yeah, that random element at the very end. Yes, I think you can prepare your deck. But I think your preparation is limited, and your preparation is still just getting rid of cards that are less than useful at the end and keeping the cards that are useful, and they're going to be in whatever order they're going to be. Maybe you split them so you have 2 that are available to you, maybe you don't, but you're still going to have whatever you have when the ground hits. And
unless you play unwanted cards in front of people, and then it's in the order you want.
Okay, we get it, Chris. Not for me. 3.
Okay.
All right, no bullying on people's final thoughts. Okay.
I just said one thing. All right, Cameron, go ahead.
All right.
Finish is a better game.
All right. Don't get Chris going. Okay.
I'm triggered now.
All right. Cameron's final thoughts.
All right, do it.
I think Falling is an amazing game for what it's trying to be. It definitely requires the right group and the right gaming atmosphere. But when you have those two right, it's an absolute blast in the most chaotic and goofy way possible. We probably played this one, like we said, like 25 times
At least.
easily over the course of your birthday weekend. It's super short. I think there are clever, quick thinking decisions to be made here, and it's so satisfying when you're able to make it work and at least aren't the first to hit the ground. Like I found myself feeling like I won just if I ever just got a skip down and you skipped me and the next person got a ground card, you know? So, while I think there are some fiddly bits here to it regarding resolving actions and the dealer and all that stuff, once the players and the dealer work out those kinks, it's just a delight of a game. Mm-hmm. Falling's going to get a 5 from me. Mm-hmm. I think if I could find it, this one's in the category of one I'd like to own.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So for me, Falling is just a wonderfully bizarre little game. It's really the best way that I can describe it. We did play this so much over the board game weekend that we had. And it wasn't just us. I mean, I feel like there are a lot of people asking for it. They're like, let's play Falling. Hey, let's play Falling. Because it's just so good to fill time in between other games or if you just want to break, right?
Yeah.
Like we said, literally, it's 90 seconds, right? It's not some complicated game. Just play it for fun. And it is chaotic in a way, but that's not to say that there isn't decisions. Again, I do feel like the more you play it, the better you will get at it. And to me, that implies that there is strategy here. And I strongly believe that there is. I really do. So why in the heck is this game rated 19,838 on BGG? Thought about this. I have 2 potential reasons that I think. One, I think that most people probably just didn't understand what they were supposed to be doing in preparing yourself and priming your deck, and everybody just played it, and everybody hit the ground, and everybody's like, this is stupid. And they played it once, maybe twice, and they're like, no. And they just never gave it a try. I think either that happened, or they played it wrong. Literally, I had to read these rules 3 times. And finally, after the 3rd time, I was like, oh, this is what you're trying to do. Because it's so weird. Even as I was teaching, I remember I was teaching to Jason. Jason was like, but we're all just going to hit the ground. And I had the same thought the first time I read the rules. And I think a lot of people just didn't get it. And I say that in the least condescending way possible. I think it's just easy to brush this game off.
Like Took us a while to get it.
It did. I think, like Jason said, you need to play it at least 4 times. First time, you're going to be like, this game sucks. Second time, you're going to be like, this game still sucks. Third time, you're going to be like, okay, not sure. And then it's just going to get better from there. So it's a big build-up, but all that to say, I agree with Cameron. This game gets a 5 for me as well. I think this game is amazing. I love it. So excited that I own it. I think it's great. It's fun. And you're going to have to play it more, Jason. I'm sorry. Because it's going to come out.
I'm glad that you guys gave it a 5. But I had to stay true to my feeling on
For
the
sure.
Man, so you got to do it.
Yeah, for sure. We're just teasing you, man.
Sure you are.
No fun, Jason. There's not enough strategy in this 90-second card game.
All right, Chris. I want to buy Falling. Where do I get it?
All right. So there are several copies available on Noble Knight.
Okay.
Several different editions, all for $12 or less. I would strongly recommend that you get the Titanic Games Goblin Edition. And we didn't mention it in our coverage, but we'll mention it here. The original theme of this is actually people falling.
I was going to say maybe that's one of the reasons why it's ranked so low.
It might be.
Human people?
That is a weird theme, right? And it's just kind of morbid and odd, right? To have people in suits and things falling to their death.
Jeez.
It's weird, right? But for whatever reason, if they're cute, cartoony goblins with Molotov cocktails, then it's okay.
Yeah.
And that didn't bother me at all.
You can always use a few less goblins in the world.
Exactly. They're expendable. So basically, I think the Titanic Game Edition is great. It's well produced. Art's fun.
A Kobold version would be even better.
Even better. So yeah, you can pick it up on Noble Knight, and there are also 7 copies on BGG as well, so you can get it there.
Sweet. We'll look that up right now.
Bill already bought one
Oh, that's right.
on Noble Knight.
That's right.
Yeah, he's showing
I better-
it off
I better
very
hurry
proudly.
And so should you.
That's right. Oh, our code. If you want to pick it up on Noble Knight, you can use our discount code HIDDEN22. Put that in our coupon code field, get 10% off your order.
Cool. Those are our thoughts on Falling.
Since time immemorial, warring lords have been fighting for supremacy in a distant kingdom. The king is weak, and warlords may take his place. The decisive moment is imminent. The warlords gather their colourful armies. Dwarves, undead, orcs, goblins with daring war machines, and different cutthroats and adventurers from all corners of the country. The lords fight for the crown and glory, your wild mercenaries, for gold and rum.
That was great.
That was a new voice. We haven't heard that one.
I was just going to say, yet another one in your arsenal of voices.
I just came up with that. I was going for like the goblins of Tolkien's world.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent.
You know,
Yeah, we ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
What about them?
What about them? They fresh.
They're fresh.
Those are not for eating.
What about their legs? I don't need those.
Don't need those.
oh, good stuff.
Oh, man. All right. Golden Rum, or Gold Und Rum, published in 2003 by Asmodee, designed by Bruno Faiduti and Alan Moon.
Yeah.
So some big names there.
Star-studded. It must be really highly ranked on BGG.
Oh, yeah. Prepare yourself. Ranked 16,902, so not quite as high as Falling.
Man, it makes me feel good that we're hitting these in the top 15,000. We're doing a good job.
But designed by Bruno Faiduti of Smiley Face fame.
Exactly.
So we'll see. All right. In Golden Rum, players are constructing armies of 4 different fantasy races in an attempt to score points when each race eventually does battle. The game's played in rounds consisting of 2 very different phases. So in the first phase, There'll be a large deck of cards. It consists of equal numbers of cards for each of the 4 different factions: the undead, the orcs, the dwarves, and the barbarians. Plus, several goblin cards. Goblins act as mercenaries. More on that when we get to the second phase of the game. So these cards have numbers on them, denoting their strength in battle, or some of them have various special abilities instead of numbers. One player, which rotates each round, will be the wizard or the chancellor, whose job it is to deal all cards from the deck one at a time at a moderate pace, face up to a series of stacks in the center of the table. This is a large number of stacks, so it's 2 times the number of players plus 1. So in a 5-player game, and this game goes up to 7, in a 5-player game, that would be 11 stacks of cards that are getting dealt out.
Madness.
So as these piles are getting built, players will only ever be able to see the top card on each stack. Each player is holding 2 recruitment cards and some number of deserter cards based on player count. The deserter cards can be played at any time once the dealer has started dealing cards, and can be played on any pile and will cancel out the card that is immediately under it. Recruitment cards can only be played once a special start enlistment card has been revealed from the deck, which is somewhere in the bottom third of the deck. A recruitment card, when it's placed on a pile, reserves that pile for the player who placed the recruitment card, unless more than one player has placed a recruitment card in that pile, in which case only the first player to place a recruitment card gets the stack. Once all the cards have been dealt from the deck, each pile is gone through, deserter cards are resolved, and any unclaimed piles are discarded. Then players claim the piles that they've placed their recruitment cards into. The wizard, or chancellor, at this point also chooses one of the other players at the table and will score whatever points that player scores in the second phase of the game. So the second phase is not real time. So the first phase was all real time. Cards are getting dealt out one at a time. The second phase is when all the battles happen. So the order of the battles between the 4 different factions is decided by the wizard. Players can see, based on the colors of the backs of cards, how many of each type of card other players have, but of course they don't know what the values of those cards are. The wizard will declare which current battle is about to happen, and all players must play all cards from that faction that they have in front of them, and can optionally add to that any number of mercenary cards that they have, or goblin cards. Once everybody's decided what cards they're going to play, cards are revealed, highest total strength wins the battle, and then the next battle is declared until all 4 factions have battled. The winner of each battle scores 2 points in the first and fourth battles, 1 point in the second and third battles, and the game ends immediately once one player reaches a predetermined number of points based on player count. And that's pretty much the whole game. I'm not going to go through all the special abilities of the cards. That'll probably come up as we talk about it. But just know some of these cards have a lot of different special abilities with all kinds of antics on them.
Yeah.
So hopefully it came through in my description. But the likely most controversial part of this game is going to be this memory element, right? So I mentioned all these piles are getting built out, and you're only seeing the top card on the stack. And so there's constantly new cards coming out. But then you're choosing which one of those stacks you want.
2 of them.
2 of them, yeah.
Yeah.
So did the memory piece of this, did that bother you guys? Did you find it interesting? What did you think about it?
Yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting. I remember when we played this the first time, we played a 6-player game. So that's 13 piles of cards.
Right.
And I remember when we started the game and the piles started coming out, I was thinking, there's no way in heck that anybody is going to remember what is in these piles, right? It just seems impossible because you've got different colors, and then amongst the different colors, you've got different ranks. Then the goblins, you have different types of goblins that interact with each other differently, and they do different things. Jason, you alluded to this earlier, but there was one goblin card, the Giant, where if you have one, it's worth 10 points, which is a ton, but if you have 2, they cancel each other out. So you're constantly looking for that, just a lot to track. But I will say, I was surprised at how well we all did at that, and it is actually very doable, because I was experiencing in the game that everybody seemed to be going for the same piles, which means that we were all picking up on which piles seemed to be good ones.
Yep.
So while not easy, I'm not saying it's easy, it's challenging, but doable, I thought.
Yeah. I definitely got the sense that everyone at the table pretty much was able to go, these 3 or 4 out of the 13, right?
Right.
Are the ones that have value. There are some that definitely don't have value.
Yeah.
That was an interesting thing to observe for sure. Personally, I thought it was frustrating. Because I mean, you got 13 cards, but then you have 8 layers, and they're constantly changing. You almost have to like tune out everything but a couple of cards and try to see where those land. I was coming up with strategies because it's overwhelming. It's too much information for that small period of time.
Yeah, I would say I agree with both of you, even though you're saying opposite things, because I think that it definitely was doable. But I think when I was looking at it, I had to tune out all but a few piles. I had to be like, okay, the initial cards that come out make this subset of piles pretty decent. I'm going to focus on just those from now on, unless I see a really good card show up on some other pile and just be like, I'm just going to try my luck with these 4 piles and go for the 2 best ones I see here. And that may not be a winning strategy, but it felt more doable than trying to keep track of all of them at the same time. And I think that's part of this game, though. Like, I don't think you're meant to try to be capturing all that information at once. I think you're trying to just go on your gut best feel.
It'll be very hard.
Oh, yeah. I did find that, too, because of the tendency for people to notice certain piles might be particularly valuable. There's an agility element to this as well, we discovered, right? The first time, I think everyone was so overwhelmed that when that initiator card, I just called it the wizard card. When the wizard card comes out and you can play your shields down, your recruitment cards.
Here come the slash. Bam, 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 bam.
Yeah. Well, initially it was kind of like, what do we do now? I guess I'll take that one. Sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then after a couple rounds,
figured it out fast.
It was like, whoa, bam! Like everyone's hands go to the middle and cards spew all over the place.
And there's probably strategy too to not doing that. I felt like we were all trying to jump on these piles immediately, but there are going to be piles that don't get a card on them right away, and there's still a third of the deck coming out, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So if you don't throw your card out there right away, well, first of all, if you do throw your card out there right away, that's ripe for somebody throwing a deserter card on there to like kill any future good cards that you get, right? But there are other cards out there, and people are less likely probably to throw deserter cards on them because nobody's claiming it, right? Yeah. And so,
but speaking of memory, you then have to track where did everybody. If you didn't play yours out, okay, well they're about to get covered up with other cards, and you better not place yours eventually down on piles that already have someone's recruitment card, or you ain't getting anything.
You're screwing yourself.
And if you don't get cards in this game,
Regan,
you're screwed.
Yeah. I will say one cool thing I did like about the deserter cards too is you can certainly use them to hurt your opponents, but you can also use them to help yourself.
Exactly.
So as I mentioned, those giant cards are super valuable.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have 2 or more in your deck, they just cancel out, right? So maybe you hold your deserter card back because you know a giant is in one of your decks and you see another one come out in that final third and you're like, or maybe somebody will do it for you. Because that's another thing too.
Right.
If somebody's like, oh, he just got a giant card. Cancel, and I'm like, well, thanks, because I have one deeper in my deck, and now I don't have to worry about that.
Which one's yours?
Yeah, exactly.
Same with the leader cards, because we didn't talk about leader cards, but each faction has leaders.
I got burned on
and
this
the leaders are similar to the giants, but a little bit different in that as long as you only have one, it doubles your entire score for that battle,
which is huge.
But if you have both of them, there are 2 of each type. If you have both of them, it negates your entire hand. Like not just those cards. It negates your entire hand for that battle. So you don't want to have both of them. But yeah, same thing. If you see both of them come out, you could cancel the second one.
Yeah. Okay. So mixed bag here, but some pretty cool things. Were there any other big cons that anybody had with the game? Any issues? I think for me, one that I would mention, and Cameron, you have touched on this, but I just want to reiterate it and make an additional point. This game, I think, unfortunately, each round just all boils down to one moment. Right? The game, it just centers on one moment each round, and it's that wha-bam moment.
Yeah.
Right? That simultaneous slap, which is an element of a lot of speed real-time games.
Sure.
So I can't be too hard on it in that regard. That's something that I personally don't really love. Games like Dutch Blitz or Jungle Speed or something like that where hands are just wham coming in real fast. I'm just not good at that, and so I don't really love that. And I found myself wishing that maybe you could claim stacks before that trigger card comes out where everybody just violently goes all at one time. Now that does introduce some risk to yourself as you're claiming something early. You're kind of inviting deserters on yourself. But it would be cool, I think, as you're working slowly through the deck and it's getting thinner and thinner, when are you going to jump on? Because you got to claim a deck at some point, right?
Yep.
And as a pile gets better and better, that temptation to jump on it gets more. Again, I'm suggesting a house rule, and we have to review a game based on the way that the rules are written. That's how we do it on here. And I wish it was that way more than the way that's written, because I just don't love that simultaneous wham. And like you said, the cards can kind of fly, and it can get kind of wild. I don't know. I just didn't love that part.
Yeah, I think the two-phased approach is meant to combat that to some degree, in that only the first half of a round is that. The second half is a little bit of strategy and when do I use my mercenaries. But I feel like even with that, it felt like a lot of times it's like, well, I'm going to pick whichever faction I have the most cards of, and I'm going to throw all my mercenaries onto that stack so that I at least guarantee that I win that one battle. It's definitely not that simple. There's room for more shenanigans than that.
But I felt that's what we were doing.
Mostly, yeah.
So let's talk about this real quick, and I'll just kick it over to you two. Cameron, you might have thoughts on it too. That was my other big con, is I did feel like the second half of the game was kind of throwaway. At least in our games, I felt like it all boiled down to that slap, and then once people had their hands, everybody had their dominant color that they were going to go for. We found this game, if you got too greedy and you try to win two colors, a lot of times you just won't win either of them. And so you just kind of gravitate towards that one that you feel like you can for sure win. And it just felt like it just played itself, that second half of the game. And then we kind of went back to the memory part, which was more enjoyable for me. But I don't know. I'm still not sure how I feel about that. But I'd be interested to know what y'all think about it.
I think sometimes you can get a hand. You're making decisions about where to put the mercenaries to pair them up, especially because that's undisclosed information until that battle happens, right? So people can't make prejudgments about how you're going to play. I think that's what it's going for, at least. You can't just look around at the backs of everyone's cards and go, okay, he's going to win yellow, he's going to win blue, because you're holding all these gray cards and you don't know what someone's going to do, right?
But correct me if I'm wrong, but in our experience, weren't most people just going in on a color?
I'm just saying, I think I'm
so
trying to
risky.
recognize the intention behind that segment of the game.
I guess in theory it could work out. And admittedly, too, we played this at a higher player count, and maybe at a lower player count, the potential to win two battles is more viable. So maybe I'm being a little unfair.
Would you end up with more cards?
No, it's just less people fighting over four hands, right?
Yeah, it's the same number of cards, so you would have less cards. Yeah, it felt like there was always going to be one person who had a dominant hand for a particular color.
Right.
And it's like, well, unless they're willing to sacrifice going all in on goblins on that one color, which they're probably not, then it doesn't make sense for me to even try to go for that color.
Right.
And so I might as well just go for the color that I have the most of and hope that it's enough. That's kind of how it played out for me. I don't disagree with you, Cameron. I think there probably is room there, if everybody is thinking that way, to try to finagle your way into winning too. But yeah, that's a way riskier play than just trying to get something.
But I think part of maybe what you're supposed to feel is the assumption that the person that's got 5 yellow cards and you've got 3 yellow cards and some goblins, that the person with 5 is like, well, I've obviously got this and I don't even need to swing with my goblins. And then you are like, but I am going to play my goblins, and then you take it from them. Right? I think that's like,
and that's what I'm saying. If you're early in turn order,
trying to do,
you shouldn't even take that risk, right? If you're in early position and you've got 5 yellows, and you're like, oh, I've got 5 yellows, and the next closest person to me has 3. I'm just going to play my yellows and save my goblins for another hand. That is dangerous and foolish because they're going to play their 3 yellows. It probably has a leader in it, and then throw all their mercenaries behind it. And now you're going to lose that color. Right. And now the color you were probably saving to try to win later, you're going to lose that too.
So you're saying that like the dominant strategy is you should just do that.
Just win what you know you can win.
And then not even try to get greedy. And
correct.
Right. Well, I think it's more fun sometimes to get a little bit greedy, Chris, and try to win multiple colors.
I'm not disagreeing.
I like to be unpredictable with my goblins.
And I would like to try to do that myself. I just didn't see a way to do it. But, you know, I could be wrong.
No, I think it's fair. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate because, you know, I like to, if we start getting a little bit edgy on a game, I try to go, okay, well, what's the intention?
Right, sure.
Yeah, one other thing that I'll throw out there is that for a real-time game, because of that second phase and the fact that it's one player at a time deciding what cards they're going to play to a battle, and you're kind of going around the entire circle. For a real-time game, it felt slow at times. Sure. It's like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Because you're playing multiple rounds of this until somebody won. Dealing out the cards 5 or 6 times. You're going through 4 different battles where every person has to put out their cards individually, one at a time. It felt long for what it was.
Yeah, there's definitely an incongruency there in terms of game pace. It's like tension with all the cards are going out, and then like go fast, and then go really slow for like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And maybe not everyone would play this game with, how many people did we have going?
Yeah, we played it over my birthday weekend, and so when we were playing it at higher player counts.
Right. And that may be higher than the average play.
That might have been a failure on our part to not get a play in it lower, so we'll throw that disclaimer in there.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Should we do final thoughts then?
Yeah, let's do it. You want to start us off, Cam?
Yeah, sure. So, in general, I honestly wasn't really that impressed with this game. I didn't really enjoy the live action part of the game, that memory element. I'm not super hot on memory games anyway, and even when I felt like I was giving it my best shot, I often felt like I was in speed war to mark the cards as soon as I could once that wizard card came out. And most of my decisions about which a pile I'd mark were fairly arbitrary because I maybe like saw a giant or a 5 or a 6 or a 9, and I was like, okay, well, I know there's one really good card in that pile, so I'll try to take it. It also felt a little bit arbitrary who really ended up with the cards that they had, and thus the main decision of the game is how to play the goblin cards to me. It's like, do I do this dominant strategy, just play with my main color, or do I try to divide them up differently? To me, it wasn't super interesting. I'm actually going to go with a 3 for this game.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, this game was so close to being a good game. So close. I was right on the line. To me personally, I found the memory aspect to be entertaining and, while challenging, not impossible. I really did feel like in most rounds, I was tracking what piles were pretty good piles most of the time. The problem I was having is I just wasn't claiming them fast enough. Somebody was just getting their hand in there faster than me, and I don't know why that is about me. I'm just slow on the draw, I guess. If I lived in the Wild West, I'd be dead. I'm just not quick draw, right? When that trigger card came out, I just couldn't get out fast enough. And for me, that's not something I personally enjoy, especially when I knew I was honed in on what I thought was good. But the memory part was entertaining. Add that to the fact that the second part of each round just kind of felt automatic and was kind of playing itself, and I didn't feel like there was a lot of cleverness there. Everybody was just winning the color they knew they could win. Dropped it down from a 4 to a 3 for me. So yeah, I'm kind of in the meh category as well. It was close. I liked parts of it, but it just wasn't quite good enough. So 3 for me.
It sounds like we have agreement on this one, I think. I was on a 3 for this too. I think the memory part didn't really bother me. It's quick. This game is meant to be zany and crazy, and you're not supposed to entirely know what's going on. And you just go with it, and you try to get what you can get, right? I think the biggest detractor for me was the length. Was that if this was a 2-minute game, like Falling, I think it would be fun, right? Because I think that the zaniness of this game is on par with Falling, in my opinion, right? Craziness of like, well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen here, right? And we can argue that back and forth all day, but they're about the same in my book. It's just Falling takes 2 minutes. This one took 45 minutes.
Sure. Yeah.
And I can sustain
With like
that
9
over.
people.
Yeah, I can sustain that over 2 minutes a couple times. Doing it over 45 minutes just kind of feels like, it's a little lackluster in the end. So I settled on a 3-2, unfortunately.
Well, we're not the only people that have opinions about this game. If you want to develop your own opinion about the game, where do you find it?
So this is an odd one, for sure. I had never even heard of this game until Jason told me about it. I was like, Und Rum, what is that? There are no copies on Noble Knight. There are 8 copies on BGG, though, and that's where Jason got it, on BGG, so you can get it there, but this is an obscure one. If you're into these weirdo games, you can check it out, because you're going to have a hard time finding it anywhere else except for on BGG. So, strange one.
All right. Well, those are our thoughts on Und Rum. One day, out of the blue, a bunch of hamburger-munching aliens descended upon Earth. In order to catch the aliens, the Alien Countermeasures Bureau sent out some of their agents. Now the town is a mess, full of agents and aliens chasing hamburgers. In this game, you race to put together a town faster than anyone else while carefully following what's on their theme cards.
Nice. Hamburgers. 9 Tiles Panic. Published in 2019 by Oink Games. Kind of a popular boutique design publisher these days. At the time of this recording, its BGG ranking, it's just 2,331.
Lame.
Designers of this game, Jens Merkel and Jean-Claude Pellin. They have a few other designs, some of them being co-designs between the two of them, but none that I'd really heard of and none that are really significantly ranked on BGG. This game was recommended to us by Daniel Wallen. We've mentioned this guy before. This is the Game Table on Instagram. He made a lot of recommendations, and this is one that we took up. So thanks, Daniel, for the recommendation. This review's for you. All right, brief rule summary for 9 Tiles Panic. In 9 Tiles Panic, the players are racing against each other to try to build the highest scoring 9-tile city each round. Each player starts the game with 9 double-sided square tiles. Each tile face is different and can have printed on them a number of different combinations of roads, which can be either straight or curved, citizens, dogs, houses, UFOs, men in black, special agents, aliens, and hamburgers. Yes, hamburgers. At the start of each round, 3 theme cards will be randomly selected from a deck of 26 unique theme cards. These theme cards will dictate how the players need to build their 3x3 city in order to score the most points. So for example, some theme cards may say, have the most dogs in your city, while another might say, have the single longest connected road, while still another might say, have the most aliens eating hamburgers. So for example, this would be satisfied by having aliens facing in the direction of a hamburger on the same road. As crazy as that sounds. Once everyone is ready, players will frantically begin constructing their city at the same time. The city must be 3x3. All of the roads must link up to one another, so you can't have any dead ends in your city, and this is harder to satisfy than you might think. This is usually the big sticking point in your construction. And you can't have any road loops in your city. Once a player is happy with the configuration of their city, they will grab the number 1 token from the center of the table, and then they will flip over a 90-second sand timer. The other players now have that much time to finish their city. Once each player finishes, they will grab a number marker from the center of the table indicating in what order they finished. If a player isn't able to construct a legal city before time expires, they are ineligible to score points in that round. Once finished, each theme card is then evaluated, with the player doing the best, scoring the maximum amount of points, with other players scoring progressively fewer points for that card. If 2 players score the same on a theme card, so let's say the longest road is being evaluated and 2 players at the table each have a road that is 6 tiles long, the higher points are awarded to the player who finished their city faster. So that's why you grab those number markers from the center of the table to break ties. Players will continue on in this way until one player has reached a predetermined number of points, with most points winning the game. That is generally how you play 9 tiles Panic. So as I mentioned in the rules, this game comes with a set of theme cards, 26 theme cards to be exact, and at the start of each round you pull out 3, and that's what you're being evaluated for over the course of that round. It's kind of dictating how you should be building your city to score points. So my question is a simple one. How did you feel about that theme deck? I feel like it's very important to the game. Do you feel like it added enough variety to the game from round to round? Do you feel like it made the game replayable? What did you think?
I really enjoyed this part of the game. You know, we talk on the show all the time about variability in games and replayability.
Yep, very important.
I think this does that astoundingly well. We played several games and never saw the same theme cards, right?
We played through the entire deck.
We did.
Yeah, we did. And they are different enough. These aren't just like minor differences. This is completely changing how you have to construct the
Very
city.
much so.
I was pretty amazed, actually, the amount of variety that these cards provided. Because I was looking at the tiles at the beginning. I was like, all right, you know, there's different things on here. But it's going to be like, all right, have the most dogs, have the most aliens, have the most of this other thing. And that's about it, right? But the variety of some of these cards, they get pretty specific. Of
Yes.
like, have the most agents that are being sandwiched together by 2 different aliens going in different directions on the same road. And you would think that's super complicated. I'm like, wow, who's ever going to be able to figure that out? But they're not unbelievably complex.
No.
But there's so much variety in them that it keeps it fresh every time.
It's fun.
I like that.
And there's some of them that you get scored for grouping certain items together and things like that. And I think that what's one of the most interesting things about this is the potential for synergy
Yes.
between these rule cards. What are they called? Rules cards?
Theme cards.
Theme cards. So, yeah, the potential for synergy between them where you have 2 different categories that are overlapping.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that's hard to do, especially if the different elements of the game are on different sides of the tiles,
Yes.
is you can find yourself going like, where are the ghosts? I can't find the ghosts. I got boys and girls everywhere and agents, but I don't have any ghosts.
Aliens.
Aliens.
They look like
I
ghosts.
keep
The
calling them
aliens
ghosts.
look like ghosts.
They're aliens, but yeah, they look like sideways Pac-Man ghosts.
I do have to say, though, the art in this game is really cool.
Oh, I agree.
Very charming.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry, Cameron.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I just think that was an interesting element of it. Is that some plays you're like, oh man, I got the aliens doing all sorts of stuff to score
Yeah.
me points, and on other ones you're fighting. Like, I got to get the roads going here. And that's the other thing that we maybe didn't talk about is the fact that if you violate one of the rules, specifically the roads, you get nothing. So you're constantly like...
Just devastating.
Yeah.
And everybody screwed this up at least once.
You're wringing your hands.
Just trying to go fast.
Okay, is it done? Can I say I'm done?
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned synergy because I think there's definitely a strategy there in trying to maximize those theme cards. But I also found it interesting in those situations where there was no synergy between them.
Right, and you have to choose.
Then you have an interesting thought of, am I going to try to do well in all of these? Or am I just going to kind of say, screw it on one of these and just start laying them out? And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of doing good in 2 of 3 of these and just go with that, right? Because you feel tempted. You want to do everything well, and sometimes you can do all 3 well, even if they're not synergistic. But again, you do feel the urge to move fast because those tiebreak markers can really matter. And so you have an interesting choice of, do I try to do well in all, or do I just try to do a couple well, right?
Yeah.
I liked that part of it.
Yeah, the tie breaking, I think that's important to mention or kind of emphasize, right? Because some of these themes, the amount of variability in scores for how well you can do in that theme is not super great, right? It might be number of tiles next to each other that has a dog, right? So like the maximum you're going to be able to do is 5 or 6.
There is an upper limit for that,
the chances of a lot of people falling on 4, 5, maybe 6, right, in that scoring category is pretty high. So those tiebreaker tiles really matter a lot.
Yeah.
For sure. And it introduces another interesting element, too, because there is a timer in this game, but it doesn't start when the round starts. It starts when the first person claims a tiebreaker tile.
Yeah.
As soon as they take number 1, the timer begins. Then all the pressure is on.
Yes.
Which is an interesting thing because you go from like, okay, I need to try to work some stuff out. And like, oh no, I got to hurry up and get done or I'm going to get last. You know?
And I'm glad you mentioned the timer because we had a little bit of discussion about this. And I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are if they've changed. Because I changed my mind on the timer a little bit.
Okay.
Because when we first played it, we were all remarking like, this timer is too long, right? Everybody seemed to be getting in under the gun, in a lot of cases, real fast.
Okay.
But the more I thought about it and the more we played it, I did like that the timer was longish. And the reason for that is, let's say Jason and Cameron just wham, just get it together real fast, and I'm behind. And I know I'm going to be in 3rd or 4th. The 90-second timer gives me time to reconfigure and reorganize my city. I'm like, well, if I don't get the tiebreakers, maybe I can just beat them all in all of the themes, right? Because I have more time to think about it, right? And I can try to just outright beat them, so I don't have to worry about ties. I don't know. I thought that was an interesting choice of trying to be fast and get those tiebreakers because they're valuable. Versus maybe I'd be a little slower and just try to crush all these scoring objectives, right? Thought it was interesting. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree on that. Found that to be interesting as well. I think I still wish it was maybe a little bit shorter. It's what, like a 90-second timer?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of time.
Yeah, I wish maybe it was like a 60-second timer or something.
Yeah.
Because I do like that tension between stay in the back of the pack and just try to crush everybody versus jump forward and try to get all the tiebreakers. But it still felt pretty long. It felt like even when you were taking your time and trying to really think it out and put it together, you were still finishing underneath the time.
Yeah.
And so maybe a little bit shorter. But.
Although there were times that some of us didn't finish. It's funny. You can have a city done and you could stop and you could be like, okay, I can just quit here. And then you look around and you're like, but I'm not doing good. And then you reorganize it and try to redo it and then you run out of time.
Yeah. Because if you mess your roads up, that's the thing.
Right.
You start flipping tiles and like you don't just like put it back.
Yeah. You're like, wait, this went here. No, these don't link up anymore, you know?
Right. And you're like, wait, how did I have it? No!
Yeah, the roads are tricky. Especially there are a couple sides of the tiles that have no roads on them.
Yes.
And there are certain objectives or theme cards that are dependent on using those ones that don't have roads on them. But when you start trying to use these tiles that don't have roads, it's like all the more sides of your city that you have to have the right road configuration on.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it gets fun with those.
It does. All right, so some good things. Was there anything you guys didn't like about Nine Tiles Panic?
If I have one other con aside from the timer thing, and this is minor, but I would throw it out there that, and I think we alluded to it, but if you screw up your city or you don't finish your city, you will not come back from that.
Unless everybody else messes up once, yeah. You're done.
Right.
I think one person came back in one of the games we played, didn't win, I don't think, but came back to within contention but it was only because everybody else screwed up at least once. Right. And I mean, that's likely too, right? That everybody's going to screw up at least once. So it's not like it's this super rare thing that, unless it was our first game, I was the only one that screwed up and I was done for.
It was like the first round too.
It can be very, very punishing because there are 3 categories scoring and everyone is scoring points, but you're scoring nothing.
Yeah.
You're getting left.
And even if you did 4th place or like last place on all of them, you'd still be getting at least 1 point per category, right? But you're getting nothing.
Yeah.
So
this was my number one con too. I think it would be more fair if you automatically get last place and then the lower number taken breaks ties for last if more than one person messes up.
So you're still getting a point, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're still slightly moving forward because, if you're not scoring anything, you're done.
Exactly.
You're done.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, similar theme to my one con is this game had a really weird game arc. And what I mean by that is I expected this game to last longer than it did.
Yeah.
Where you play a couple rounds and you're like,
well,
it's almost over.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish that maybe it just went a little bit longer. This game plays fast.
Yeah.
I remember we played 2 rounds and we were like in striking range.
2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, and it was just a little jarring. Maybe I shouldn't put my expectations on how long I feel it should be, but I remember after reading the rules and getting ready to play it, it just didn't go as long as I thought it would. And that, again, kind of plays into that if you make a mistake thing.
Right.
That's why you're done, because you just have no time to make it up. The game moves fast. Right. And so maybe I wish it was a little longer, maybe another round, but that's a minor quibble, really.
Yeah, and I think that's easy to house rule, right? If,
you
if
can
your
just play
crew
more
just
points.
like enjoys looking at it or enjoys playing the game longer, just say, well, instead of playing at 20, we're going to play to 30 or 40.
Yeah.
Or you could just play multiple games like we did. I mean, we literally were just like, okay, rack it up again, right?
Just kept going.
And maybe that's why, right? Because of the fact that it is possible for a person to just get way far behind. It may not be fun for that person to continue just going on knowing, well, it doesn't matter if I get first place in every round from here on out, I'm not going to win.
Just end their suffering quickly.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, yep. All right. Well, Chris, kick us off for final thoughts this time.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say it. I don't think I was being super subtle about it. I enjoyed this game. I thought it was fun. I'm going to give this game a 4. It's a bit multiplayer solitaire-ish, and I didn't list that in the cons because I don't really think it is a con. That doesn't really bother me in games that are short like this one. Everybody's just doing their own puzzle, doing their own thing, but it's still tense. Usually you get tension in games from player interaction, and there's not really player interaction in this game per se, except for the grabbing of those tiebreaker tiles, which can really matter. And so you feel the need to go quickly. And I just enjoyed the puzzle of putting the city together. I wasn't great at it at times. I sucked at it. Sometimes I finished it, and I was like, crap, I have 2 dead-end roads in my city. How did I miss that?
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. But even still, despite all that, it didn't really frustrate me. I thought it was enjoyable. It didn't knock my socks off or anything, but it didn't have any glaring cons. I thought it was a fun little filler-type game that I'm going to keep. So again, I'm going to give it a 4. I liked it.
Cool. Well, I'll go next. This is definitely a quick and easy game to learn and play. The stakes are not incredibly high, and for each couple of minutes it takes to play around, it's usually a fun puzzle to try and optimize balancing your town for points while making sure not to get dead last. I think they did a great job diversifying the rule cards, and I think different combination possibilities would create a lot of replay value.
Definitely.
I think it's a good game too. I'm going to give it a 4.
Nice.
Cool. Well, of all the ones we did for this episode, I think I enjoyed this one by far the most. I really enjoyed the variability that came with the cards. It felt like every round we were doing was fresh. And the enjoyableness... Is that a word? Enjoyableness?
Joy.
Yeah.
I think they just call that joy.
Sure, yeah. We'll go with that.
Pure joy.
The excitement that came with the construction of the city every round, I found myself almost not really caring about the score, which is... Maybe that's a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, you're competing and you're trying to score the most points, right? But I felt like I was focused in on trying to score the most points for that round. And like the overarching score became less important. I was just having enough fun just doing it round by round.
Sure.
Bordering on an activity almost. Like a fun, enjoyable puzzle.
Yeah. And I didn't find the multiplayer solitaire part to be con. I thought that there was so much hilarity going on of just people... All right, I need another burger to get in front of my alien. and people screaming because they took a
the
tile.
agents? I can't find
My
the
agent's running the wrong direction.
Or they take a tile and then they realize that they screwed something up in their city, and it's like, no! So I just found that to be very entertaining. I really enjoyed this one. I gave this one a 5.
Oh, wow.
So I thought this one was great. I think the art style will be appealing to a lot of people. I think it's fast enough that even if you're not good at it, you can still enjoy it. There's
Yeah.
enough variability to keep you interested.
Yeah.
I thought this was
I think
good.
the barrier for entry is pretty low.
I was just
think
getting ready to
kids-
say, you
kids and people that don't normally game could probably
You should
play.
take this home, Jason, and play with your kids.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I think they I need to play with my kids. I haven't yet, but I think they would love it. Honestly, yeah. It's just that kind of game. Good for everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet. Well, where can Jason find his copy?
Yeah.
You want to
It's
sell
on
me
Noble
yours?
Knight. But no, I'm not getting rid of mine. But there are copies available on Noble Knight. Our friends at Noble Knight. There are several copies in stock. You can get it very easily there. And there are 12 copies on the BGG Marketplace. And I imagine if you looked, you could find it elsewhere too. Like I said, this game came out in 2019. So
Okay.
it's not an older game, but it's one that's not really often talked about. So I'm happy that we're able to shed a little light on it.
Underappreciated?
Underappreciated, he
There we
would say.
go.
Not forgotten. Underappreciated. So, yeah, good one. 9 Tiles Panic. Check it out. And those are our thoughts on 9 Tiles Panic.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this real-time games episode of Hidden Gems. If you like what we're doing here, please remember that it's a huge help to us if you would leave us a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice and follow us on our various social media accounts. Check out the BGG Guild if you want to interact with us or share a game that you think is a hidden gem. And if you're so inclined, please consider supporting the show over at patreon.com/hiddengemspodcast or by picking up a shirt at hiddengemsboardgamepodcast.com. Until next time, I'm your host Cameron.
This is Chris.
I'm Jason.
Thanks for listening. This episode of Hidden Gems, number 29, was recorded in Raleigh, North Carolina on March 20, 2022. Join us again in 2 weeks when we take a look at a trio of games from one of the pillars of the modern board game hobby, board game publisher Eagle Griffin Games. Hidden Gems is produced and edited by Chris Alley, Cameron Lockey, and Jason Yanchuleff. Our Board Game Geek Guild is monitored and managed by honorary Hidden Gems team member Ghidorah. Our show's logo was illustrated by designer and artist Caitlin Nieto. Check out her work on Instagram at It's Caitlin Nieto. We would love to hear from you. Feel free to join the discussion on our many social media accounts. You can find us on Facebook at Hidden Gems Board Game Podcast, Instagram at hiddengems.podcast, and Twitter at Hidden Gems Board. Disagree with one of our reviews? Have something you want to say about one of the games we discussed today? You can also make your voice heard on our Board Game Geek Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, guild number 3874. Once again, thank you for joining us on Hidden Gems, and until next time, fellow gem seekers, enjoy your games and enjoy your search. Our Board Game Geek Guild is monitored and managed by honorary Hidden Gems team member Ghidorah. I don't have this part memorized yet.
Next page.
Next page.
Next slide, please.
Update the teleprompter, please.
What are those called that you put on in middle school and they put on the...
Oh, the cue cards?
No. The transparencies that you put on
Oh,
the thing and it projects on
I think they just call them transparency.
God. I'm just a relic now.
It's been a while since you've been in middle school.
You know, what do they call those transparencies?
Yeah.
Transparencies.
We
right,
had
of
those.
course. Yeah.
Hey! What do they call those transparent things on the...
Oh, Lord.
I'll just continue.
Keep going.